The containment field holding back the star's radiation just collapsed, and Station Commander Zilax watched in horror as the human engineer's 3 adopted cubs, curious young aliens from the Zentaur species, climbed inside the exposed reactor core. All personnel, emergency evacuation protocol. Zilax's announcement died in his throat as Amelia Williams, the human who'd somehow convinced station administration to let her adopt 3 of the most notoriously curious species in known space, sprinted toward the breach instead of away from it. "Don't touch anything!" Amelia's voice carried across the engineering deck, sharp with that particular human panic that Zilax had learned meant something catastrophic was about to get worse. Through the observation window, Medical Officer Kaeldra's 4 hands flew across her scanner array, her head tendrils going rigid with shock. "Commander, those radiation levels, nothing should survive more than 3 seconds of exposure. The cubs have been in there for 17 seconds. "I'm aware, Doctor." Zilax activated every emergency system simultaneously. Containment teams, full hazard gear, immediate response. Medical, prepare for... They're dismantling the primary coolant valve. One of the Trell engineers pointed at the monitors, his voice climbing to frequencies Zilax didn't know Trell could produce. "They're taking it apart." Zilax's secondary heart stopped. The primary coolant valve was the only thing preventing a cascade failure that would consume the entire station. How are they even? The access panel requires level 7 engineering clearance. "They appear to have improved the locking mechanism," the engineer whispered. "It opens faster now." On the monitor, the smallest cub, the one Amelia called Pip, held up the valve's core regulator with obvious pride, chittering excitedly to its siblings. The radiation meters were screaming warnings that should have been measuring corpses, not living creatures conducting an impromptu disassembly project. Amelia hit the emergency door override, and Zilax found himself doing something he'd never done in 40 years of command. He grabbed her arm to stop her from entering a lethal environment. "Engineer Williams, that's a direct order. Stand down. Those radiation levels will kill you in seconds." She looked at him with that expression humans got when they were about to ignore every rule of survival instinct. "Commander, with respect, those are my kids in there, and they heard 'don't touch anything' as definitely investigate everything immediately." "I know the difference." "You don't." She pulled free with surprising strength and stepped through the door. Kaeldra's scanners went absolutely berserk. "Commander, the human's life signs. This is impossible. She should be dead. She should be very dead. Add it to the list of impossible things happening today," Zilax muttered, watching Amelia wade through radiation that should have been reducing her to constituent atoms. The cubs saw her and bounded over, holding up various pieces of disassembled reactor equipment like younglings showing off art projects. "Mama, look, we're helping!" The largest cub, Dash, waved what appeared to be a stabilization rod. "This piece was making a funny noise, so we fixed it." "Oh, stars preserve us," Zilax breathed. "They've breached the primary stabilization array." "Commander," Kaeldra's voice had gone very quiet, the way it did when her medical training encountered something that violated every known principle of biology. "The cub's cellular structure is adapting, real-time. I'm reading genetic changes happening on the fly. They're not being harmed by the radiation, they're incorporating it." On screen, Amelia had reached the cubs and was doing a rapid inspection of each one, running her hands over them while they chittered happily and showed her their findings. Every moment she stayed in that environment should have been her last. "And the human?" Zilax asked, though he suspected he didn't want to know. "Also adapting. Slower than the cubs, but, Commander, I don't have a classification for what I'm seeing. Human biology shouldn't be capable of this." The second largest cub, Spark, tugged on Amelia's suit and pointed deeper into the reactor core. Mama, there's a whole chamber back there with more interesting things. Can we research those too?" Amelia's response carried clearly over the comm system. "Absolutely not. Nobody is researching anything else until we put back everything you've already taken apart." Naturally, all three cubs immediately scampered toward the chamber Spark had mentioned, Amelia running after them while simultaneously trying to grab the various critical components they'd scattered across the floor. "Evacuation teams, belay that order," Zilax said wearily. "Someone get me the Galactic Safety Commission. I need to report a Category Omega incident." "Which category is that, sir?" his second officer asked. "The one we're about to invent. I'm calling it Human-Dependent Cubs in Research Mode during Critical Infrastructure Failure. Start taking notes. We're going to need an entirely new protocol manual." "Pip, honey, that's a plasma conduit. It's not a toy. Put it down!" Amelia lunged for the smallest cub, who was currently juggling 3 streams of superheated plasma like they were soap bubbles. "But Mama, watch!" Pip connected 2 of the streams, and the reactor's efficiency readings jumped 40%. "See? We made it better." Kaeldra's scanners emitted a sound the manufacturer definitely hadn't programmed. "Commander, medical update. The cubs aren't just surviving, they're thriving. Their cellular regeneration rates have increased by 300%. The radiation is somehow optimizing their biology." "That's scientifically impossible," Zilax stated flatly. "So was humans adopting Zentaur cubs, sir, yet here we are watching it happen in real time." Kaeldra's tendrils were doing that nervous, coiling thing. "The human is showing similar adaptation, just slower. I'm reading improvements to her cardiovascular system, neural density increases, enhanced cellular repair." "Dash, no!" Amelia's shout interrupted the medical report. "We do not reorganize the power distribution grid without running simulations first." "But we did run simulations, Mama." Dash held up a datapad covered in calculations that made Zilax's head hurt. "See? If we route the secondary plasma flow through the tertiary conduits and bypass the redundant safety loops." "The redundant safety loops are redundant for a reason," Amelia said, trying to sound stern while simultaneously catching Spark, who was attempting to improve the radiation shielding by removing it entirely. "Initiate remote emergency shutdown," Zilax ordered. "Authorization code Omega-7 Alpha." Every screen in the command center flashed the same message: "System reconfigured. Previous authorization codes deprecated. New protocols active." The Trell engineer squeaked. "Sir, they've rewritten the entire control architecture. It's actually more efficient. Response time is down by 70%, but we don't have access anymore." "They locked us out of our own station?" Zilax felt his main heart doing irregular things. "No, sir. They improved the access system. We just need to learn the new one." The engineer pulled up a schematic that looked nothing like standard galactic engineering. "According to this, they've eliminated 17 redundant verification steps, streamlined the authorization matrix, and, Commander, our backup systems are now operating at 340% of rated capacity. That's impossible. You can't just make systems more efficient by—" Zilax stopped. Through the observation window, he could see Pip showing Amelia exactly how they'd simplified the power routing by making it less confusing. "Mama said don't touch anything," Spark explained cheerfully, rewiring what looked like the main EPS junction. "So we're studying everything first, then touching it. That's proper research methodology." Amelia caught the cub's hands. "Sweetie, when Mama says don't touch, she means research it thoroughly to understand the underlying principles before making improvements." All 3 cubs chorused together. "That's not what I meant." Amelia looked up at the observation window with an expression Zilax could only describe as, "Help me. I've created science monsters." Kaeldra abandoned her station and headed for the decontamination staging area. "Commander, I'm going in. Those cubs need immediate medical evaluation." "Doctor, no!" But Kaeldra was already through the door, medical kit in hand, walking into radiation that should have killed her 3 times over. Her vital signs on the monitor remained stubbornly stable. "Is everyone on this station suddenly immune to basic physics?" Zilax demanded. "Mama, who's that?" Dash pointed at Kaeldra, then immediately bounded over to investigate the new arrival. Are you here to help with the research? We've made so many discoveries. Caldra stood frozen as 3 enthusiastic cubs showed her their improvements. Her medical scanner dangled forgotten in one hand while she stared at readings that contradicted her entire education. They've rewired their own genetic structure, she breathed. Commander, are you seeing this? They're not Zentaur anymore. They're not human. They're something in between. The radiation exposure triggered rapid evolutionary adaptation guided by the human's presence, and they're consciously directing it. We made ourselves better, Pip announced proudly. The radiation had all this energy going to waste, so we figured out how to use it. Want to see? It's easy. Nobody is teaching the doctor how to absorb deadly radiation, Amelia said firmly, scooping up Pip before the cub could demonstrate. And we are having a serious discussion about the difference between research and catastrophic safety violations. But Mama, look at the station efficiency reports. Spark pulled up a holographic display. We've increased power output, reduced waste heat by 60%, and fixed that weird vibration in Deck 7 that nobody could figure out. Zilax checked the engineering reports. Everything the cubs said was accurate. The station was running better than it had since commissioning. They'd accidentally optimized systems that teams of expert engineers had spent years trying to improve. Emergency evacuation is now impossible, his second officer reported. The cubs modified the emergency protocols. The system won't allow evacuation during active research and improvement operations. They locked us in? Zilax's voice cracked. No, sir. They made the system smarter. It recognizes that evacuating during improvements would be wasteful and illogical. Their words are in the code comments. On screen, all 3 cubs had climbed onto Amelia, chittering excitedly about their next research target. She looked simultaneously proud, terrified, and exhausted, an expression Zilax was beginning to recognize as standard human parenting mode. Okay, team meeting time, Amelia announced, sitting cross-legged on the reactor floor while radioactive plasma swirled around them like a gentle breeze. We need to talk about appropriate research boundaries and why Mama's rules exist. Is it because the other aliens don't understand proper scientific methodology? Dash asked innocently. Zilax watched Amelia's face cycle through several emotions before settling on resigned amusement. Sure, kid. Let's go with that. Senior researcher Vexthul materialized via emergency transport directly into the command center, his reputation for solving impossible problems preceding him by approximately 30 seconds. I've reviewed the telemetry, he announced, multiple data tablets floating around him. This is categorically impossible. Centaur cubs cannot survive these radiation levels. Humans definitely cannot. And nothing in this universe can improve reactor efficiency by touching it. Therefore, none of this is happening. With respect, researcher, I'm watching it happen right now, Zilax said, gesturing at the monitors. Through the window, Pip had discovered the quantum stabilizer, the one piece of equipment so sensitive that breathing near it wrong could destabilize local space-time. Oh no, breathed every engineer simultaneously. Mama, what's this spinny thing? Pip poked it. The quantum stabilizer, which had been running normally for 3 years, suddenly began rotating in the opposite direction. Reality rippled. And then every instrument on the station reported that quantum coherence had improved by 800%. It's running backwards, Vexthul whispered, his scientific worldview visibly cracking. That's not. Quantum systems don't work backwards. Apparently they do if cubs research them, Caldra commented from inside the reactor core, having completely abandoned her medical protocols in favor of documenting the impossible. Amelia had her head in her hands. Okay, so here's the thing about cubs in research mode. When I said, don't touch anything, they heard study everything systematically to understand it better. It's a translation issue. A translation issue? Zilax felt his voice hitting ranges usually reserved for emergency sirens. They're rewriting physics because of a translation issue. We're helping Mama, Spark announced cheerfully, now somehow interfacing directly with the station's main computer core without any visible connection. She said the station systems were unnecessarily complicated, so we're making them simpler. The entire power grid flickered, reorganized itself into a pattern that resembled nothing in any engineering database, and began operating at 400% efficiency. How are you even? Vex Thul scanned Spark with every instrument he had. All of them returned error, unknown operating principles. You're using energy states that don't exist. Your neural patterns are processing information faster than quantum computers. You're casually violating causality just by thinking. Is that bad? Dash asked innocently, while simultaneously converting deadly gamma radiation into harmless electrical current just by touching a wall panel. Vex Thul sat down heavily. I don't know anymore. My entire understanding of physics is now suspect. Commander, the Trell engineer called out, voice shaking. The station it's responding to the Cubs' intentions now. They're not using controls. They're just thinking at it, and it does what they want. We've lost all administrative access. We didn't take it away, Pip said helpfully. We just made the station smarter. Now it knows what needs to happen without all the confusing button pressing. Amelia grabbed Dash, who was reaching for the one panel she'd specifically, explicitly, in multiple languages told them not to touch. The stellar cartography core. Dash, baby. Mama said that one is off limits. Dash's eyes went wide with realization. Oh, Mama used the special serious voice. That means it's really important research. The cub immediately touched it. Every star chart in the quadrant updated simultaneously. Centuries of astronomical data reorganized itself into patterns that made instant, perfect sense. 3 different long-standing mapping errors corrected themselves. They just revolutionized stellar cartography by accident, Vex Thul said numbly. I'm simultaneously so proud and so terrified, Amelia muttered, hugging the cub who'd just rewritten astrophysics. Good job on the discovery. Terrible job on the listening to Mama. We're helping. All 3 cubs chimed together. The station's emergency klaxons gave up and started playing cheerful music instead. Did they just hack the alarm system? Zilax demanded. They made it less stressful, the Trell engineer reported. The code comments say scary noises make Mama worried. Zilax looked at Vex Thul. Vex Thul looked at his instruments showing impossible readings. They both looked at the cubs, who were now teaching the station's AI to be more helpful. I'm going to need so much documentation, Vex Thul whispered. Okay, everyone stop panicking for 30 seconds, Amelia said, her voice carrying that particular human authority that somehow worked even in the middle of cosmic impossibility. The cubs aren't breaking physics. They're in research mode. It's a developmental phase for Zentar young. They learn by investigating everything they encounter. We know about research mode, Zilax protested. Standard protocol is complete environmental lockdown until it passes. Right, which is why Zentar development takes twice as long as it should, and they grow up terrified of new things. Amelia gently detached Pip from a plasma conduit. Humans figured out you don't stop the curiosity, you channel it. She pulled out a datapad and showed them her approach. Detailed lists of research-approved targets, graduated complexity levels, and something called controlled discovery experiences. Watch! Hey, team! She addressed the cubs, who immediately clustered around her. Mama needs help with a really important research project. The tool shed on Deck 9 is completely disorganized. I need expert researchers to figure out the optimal organizational system. All 3 cubs' eyes went wide. Critical organizational research? Spark breathed. Supercritical. Lives could depend on finding the right tool quickly during emergencies. We're on it, Mama. The cubs bounded toward the exit, then stopped. But proper research methodology means we need to document our findings and follow safety protocols, right? Exactly right. Amelia beamed. Real researchers always prioritize safety while investigating. The cubs huddled briefly. Then Dash spoke up. We should probably put the reactor systems back to stable configuration before starting new research. Don't want to leave projects half-finished. Vex Thul watched in amazement as the cubs systematically restored the reactor. keeping their improvements but adding proper safeguards, reinstating safety protocols, and even creating detailed documentation of their modifications. They learn through tactile investigation, Vexthul muttered, furiously taking notes. The touching isn't random, it's how they process information. Combined with human adaptation abilities and protective instincts, they've created a feedback loop of mutual enhancement. It's not that complicated, Amelia said, ruffling Spark's head crest. They're kids. Smart, curious, occasionally terrifying kids. You give them structure, boundaries they understand, and projects that satisfy their curiosity safely. Mama! Mama! Pip pulled up a holographic display. We finished the efficiency analysis before we go. The station is running 412% better than baseline. We documented everything. The report was actually comprehensible. Clear explanations, safety notes, and recommendations for future improvements. At the bottom, in careful script, research conducted by Pip, Dash, and Spark. Supervised by Mama. Safety protocols maintained, mostly. Zilax stared at the report, then at Amelia, then at the cubs who were now excitedly discussing toolshed organizational theory. You're telling me, he said slowly, that human parenting of Zentaur cubs is essentially controlled chaos management? Now you're getting it. Amelia grinned. They're going to investigate things no matter what. I just make sure those things won't kill them or accidentally destroy the station. Usually. Mama, we're hungry, Dash announced. Can we have snacks before the tool shed research? Research phase complete, Kaeldra observed, checking her medical scanners. Their neurological patterns are shifting from active investigation to integration and rest modes. The cubs bounded over to Amelia, who produced snack packets from seemingly nowhere, another mysterious human ability. Station systems are stabilizing, the Trell engineer reported, sounding relieved. All improvements are holding. We have administrative access back, and, Commander, we're running better than we ever have. Vexthul looked at his instruments one more time. They've created hybrid technology based on principles that should be impossible but somehow work. This will revolutionize everything we know about engineering. That's great, Amelia said, wiping crumbs off Pip's face. Can someone show us to that tool shed? We have important research to conduct. The three cubs chittered excitedly, already planning their organizational strategies. 2 hours later, the tool shed was organized with the efficiency that made the engineering team weep with joy, and Zilax was drafting what he'd decided to call human-dependent research protocols. I'm officially designating the cubs as junior research consultants, he announced, with full documentation requirements and Amelia Williams as mandatory supervisor. They're 7 years old, Amelia pointed out. They rewrote quantum mechanics before lunch. Age is clearly irrelevant. Zilax added another clause about mandatory snack breaks. Vexthul approached hesitantly, data tablets clutched like prayer books. Engineer Williams, I have 17 supposedly impossible engineering problems. Would the cubs be willing to schedule it for next week? Amelia said, checking her own tablet. They need 3 days to process what they learned today, and I need to cub-proof whatever you want them investigating. Mama! Spark tugged her sleeve. What can we research tomorrow? Amelia crouched down to eye level. Tomorrow we're studying botany in the hydroponics bay. After that, if you're good, maybe some basic programming. What about after that? Dash asked eagerly. After that, we'll see. But absolutely nothing in the weapons bay, nothing in life support. And definitely nothing in the cafeteria food synthesizer. All three cubs exchanged glances that Zilax had learned to recognize as mental note. Investigate those things first chance we get. Kaeldra laughed from her medical station. Commander, I'm updating my assessment of human child care. It's not parenting, it's advanced crisis management with snacks. Accurate, Zilax muttered, watching Amelia negotiate research boundaries with three beings who'd casually violated causality that morning. Amelia pulled up her personal datapad, reviewing her list of cub-proof areas on the station. The list was getting shorter. Behind her, she heard Pip whisper to the others, "Did you see Mama's list?" I bet that's her research priority ranking. All three cubs leaned over to study the list with intense scientific interest. Amelia glanced back, saw what they were doing, and laughed. That particularly human sound that Zilax had learned meant, "I know exactly what chaos is coming, and I'm somehow okay with it." She made a note on her datapad. Tomorrow, explain the difference between research priorities and do not touch lists. Then, smaller below that, probably won't work, prep backup protocols. The cubs chittered excitedly, already planning their next discovery.